Numbers 19, 9 through 11. Now, this is talking about the offering of the red heifer that wasn't spotted or had any blemish in it to be offered for sin offering for Israel. They had many different offerings they performed for sin. They'd have a Passover lamb, and all these each had their details of how to be carried out. And he's going through explaining these details as they're actually performing it for the first time in the wilderness. Then a man who is clean shall collect the ashes of the cow and deposit them outside the camp in a clean place. So we see back in the first part how a man who is clean had to do this and became unclean till sunset in the previous verse. So this is the second man involved in this process. Because the other man's unclean, so now we got the second man gathering the ashes after the first man put him on the calf on the altar. They shall be reserved for use by the Israelite community in water of ritual purification. For the cow is a sin offering. Okay. So we see how in the phrase "dust" and throwing dust on ashes and sackcloth, sign of mourning. This is where these ashes would have came from, most likely. They would have been for a sign of cleansing after mourning. They would have been kept for this purpose. And they would have also been kept as a reminder that if they rebel against God, to remind them of what God had already brought them from, their sins. It's to remind them, don't rebel against God, because it just amounts to you following the path that you've left. And we as Christians sometimes have reminders of where God's brought us and are knowing that we shouldn't go back that way because it's no good. And this ashes would have been able to remind them of this. This is why during times of mourning they would have put them on to remind them, okay, God left this behind. I don't need to hold what happened in the past. It has helped them get over what happened in the past. The man who collected the ashes of the cow shall wash his clothes, but remains unclean till sunset. This rule shall be binding for all time on Israel and on the alien who is living with them. So this was for foreigners that were amongst them too. They were forgiven by this, and they weren't allowed to go in the tabernacle. But if they chose to, it was to forgive their sins. Because the view, and this was a view that the Puritans had, that if you have sin in the city, it's going to affect the whole city. And we see scripture about that in Joshua later, how the whole place was cursed because of the greed of one man. So there's a sense of this. And the fact that if somebody, even a foreigner, is living in their community, he's supposed to live by their laws, and it was accustomed to by then, because if you went in Roman times and you lived by the Roman law, although the Jews did have effect over, because of their culture, affected it. But we as Christians, they live in this world and we live by others' law, but we still have to put God up first. Now, this isn't saying that those who reject God are going to be saved by the actions we do in the church. It's just saying our interaction with them should be a positive one that allows them to see God. We as Christians should be able to shine that light to them. Even if they don't know who God is, they should know something's distinct and different about Him. Also, we should never refuse anybody from coming to the Lord. If the door's open for us to share, we should take that opportunity to share with them. Oftentimes, we may not see that we need to have time, but if God sees the need that they brought them to us, then we need to make the time. We also see in the New Testament how this correlates, because Israel was down on foreigners. They were very negative toward the Gentile people. But we see how God includes the alien in this. We see people like Ruth, who was a foreigner, but God accepted them in. People like Rahab, God accepted them in because they showed faith. It's a matter of faith, not nationality, culture. It's a matter of us giving Him our faith and following Him. And God stays the same then as He is now. If the people showed faith to show up for the sacrifice, then they were to take part in that sacrifice. It's by faith that we're saved, not by works. So by them bestowing that faith, they were able to partake in the sacrifice.